Hey everybody, it's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and in today's video we're going to talk about the latest collab effort from Crin and Moondrop, the Dusk. Now this is a sequel to the Blessing 2 Dusk, obviously one that was really well received by the community. That was a result of Crin's first collab with Moondrop, so naturally there's going to be a lot of hype about this one. The Blessing 2 Dusk used a single DD or dynamic driver with 4 BAs or balanced armatures, and this new approach uses 2 dynamic drivers, 2 BAs, and 2 planar magnetic tweeters. Now, Crin actually released a video on kind of the history behind the development of the new Dusk, and I will have a link in the description to learn more about it. The short story is he went with a planar micro tweeter because it helped reduce the bump found in the Knowles BA driver around 6,000 Hertz. He wanted to explore some options that would tame that, which the planar micro tweeter provided, so that's where we are. Inside the box, you're presented with the newly designed Dusk faceplates, which are CNC forged carbon fiber. Everyone has their own aesthetic preferences, but I like the balance of confusion this monotone textured shell provides, which is kind of like a wood or Damascus look, even though it's forged carbon. Once you move past the initial faceplate inspection we all do, you move on to the travel case, which contains both cables. Yes, both cables. One cable is a pure analog 3.5mm single-ended connection, and the other cable is a USB-C DAC version that has built-in onboard audio profiles as well. If you install the Moondrop app on your mobile device, you get several presets built into it that you can toggle to kind of pick your own sound profile that you like, in addition to being able to apply your own parametric EQ. Looking at the shell and shape, I was a little bit nervous because in the past, when I reviewed the Truth Ear Red, another much more affordable collab from Crin, I was concerned about long-term comfort. The nozzle size of this guy is 6.8mm once you factor in the lip. It's quite large, and when I was looking at the bass response and the characteristics that I've typically seen with IEMs like this, I expected the nozzle to be larger, but this is much more similar to the older Dusk, and it's a lipless design. So not only is it smaller, but because of the lip, it minimizes that protrusion even more. So this is 5.8mm or 5.7mm versus 6.8, which is about a 17% reduction in thickness. That's pretty substantial when it comes to ear comfort. Now, I was also a little bit concerned about the comfort when it came to the shell size, because as you can see, it's quite a bit deeper even when you compare it to something like the Red. The new shell shape is thicker because they had to accommodate the 3-way driver matrix, which is towards the top of the faceplate here. And by extending that depth, I was nervous it would kind of affect the feeling or weight dispersion on my ear. I didn't want it to feel like it was pulling down by sticking out. It really doesn't stick out as far as I thought it would. So that plus the shell shape and the more narrow nozzle size, these are actually still extremely comfortable to wear. Now, if you tend to sleep with IEMs, these shells are a little bit thicker. So if you're laying on your side, depending on how plush and fluffy your pillow is, it's kind of a gray area there, but overall it doesn't stick out where it looks cumbersome. And if you wear it like you normally do being out and about, I think I can still wear this for a long period of time. Now, I measure all of my IEMs on an IEC 711 coupler clone and then upload them to the SquigLink website. I have my own page just for IEMs and then a separate one for headsets and headphones. So when you're comparing them, they are not directly translatable to other people's or sites' measurements. So if someone has a 5128 measurement, don't use my IEC 711 coupler clone to measure against or compare against someone else's 5128 measurement. Different ears, different simulators, they have a different response, but you can use it to compare against other stuff I have uploaded. Now, the 3.5mm connection measures well without the use of any DSP. The bass is deep and impactful and smoothly transitions into the mids without any odd bump from the crossover. I have had that issue in the past where because of the crossover from the dynamic driver to the BA, usually there's a little bit of a bump or hiccup in the frequency response, but considering this is a premium price point, I was hoping that wouldn't be the case, and I'm pleased to say it's not. When you compare both measurements, with the green line being the DAC and the blue line being the actual analog connection, both frequency responses are relatively close. He's using the DAC, and when I say he, Crin provided a default tune that even if you don't ever modify or use the Moondrop software to customize, makes just a very minor tweak to the sound profile. It pulls down a little bit of frequency response around 1400 Hertz, as well as the 5400 area, and then he also reduced the 14,000 Hertz area to help kind of tame some of that upper treble extension. Both of them are very similar. They're very close to where most people may not even hear the difference. This is more of him just fine-tuning what they couldn't achieve completely using passive design. You know, the structure of the IEM, the arrangements of the drivers, filter matrix, all this other stuff, the crossover, etc. All of that is what's called passive tuning, and you can only take that so far without possibly having other negative consequences. So think of this DSP as kind of like the fine 1000 grit sandpaper or whatever, just to kind of smooth a few minor areas out. Now, both of these sound profiles are excellent, and they're very versatile because you can listen to a huge variety of genres without ever needing to change EQ. It's always a fine line to tiptoe when you have something that is really good in the bass department for certain tracks, and then you listen to an acoustic and things just sound off, or there's some kind of scoop in the 1 to 2K region to kind of create a pseudo sense of space. And by doing so, it can affect the way string instrument sounds or how far forward the vocals come forward in the mix. So this is a tune that's relatively universal and safe, but I don't say safe in a negative way. Some of them just play it so safe where nothing really shines, and where the dusk is, where its magic comes from, is being safe but still sounding absolutely incredible regardless of what you're listening to. Now, when you get into the upper treble, this is where we're going to have different opinions and preferences. In fact, I think most of our preference differences lie in the upper treble more than any other area of frequency response, whereas most of us kind of agree generally on what a good mid-range sounds like. And the dusk has pretty strong and emphasized upper treble. It's not so much that it's like sibilant and overly lispy or painful to hear, but it's definitely on the airy side, and depending on your listening age, which is basically how sensitive you are to those upper frequencies, your response to that noise and your own preference will greatly impact how much you like this treble. For me, it's just a little bit bright. Thanks to the DSP cable, I can reduce that a little bit more. He already dropped 1400 hertz, or 14,000 hertz, I should say, 14K. A little bit, and frankly, I EQ'd that down just a little bit more. I think I did minus 6 dB was my preference, but I know some people have gone further. So definitely tweak and customize it to your own liking. If you're the type of person that tends to increase the treble slightly on a lot of products you own, this is done so tastefully that this might end up being one of your favorite sound signatures you've ever heard, because it's not over the top either. Now, I mentioned the DSP cable being able to be customized, and there are different profiles. This is my biggest gripe currently in the current state of the Dusk launch, is the Moondrop software does not work on iOS. At least it's not updated on the iOS store to include support of this cable, so I couldn't modify anything on my phone. And also on the Android App Store at the time of this review, the publicly available app did not have that option either. So there's an APK file you can download from Moondrop to install from the web on your Android device to give you this customization that you are about to see the results of. I really hope that they fix this soon. Frankly, not everyone has an Android device to customize this. Thankfully, my favorite sound profile is the default one it came with. However, after installing the APK and using my Pixel tablet to customize the sound, or at least measure all of the results, you can see what the results are here. And there's quite a variety of sound signatures. The bass plus is just a ridiculous amount of bass, and it even pulls down the upper frequency a little bit to make it even stronger. Now, all of these are done with negative gain. It's because the DSP cable doesn't have a preamp adjustment. You basically, if you want to boost bass, don't really boost bass. You're going to actually add distortion. What you want to do is reduce all of the other frequencies accordingly to get the end result you want. And there is a visual aid on the app to show you the byproduct of that. So if you want to look at these a little bit more closely, again, just look at the link in my description below, scroll down to the bottom of the page, and when you click the plus sign, you can actually add the other measurements that are missing if you want to compare one profile to the other. The USB DAC worked on Windows, it worked on Mac, of course it works on Android, and even if you have an older iPhone with a Lightning port, if you buy the appropriate adapter, I'll have a link in the description below for this. It worked on my older iPhone 14 Pro Max as well, so I was able to, again, flash my custom EQ to the cable that I preferred, and then now I can just plug this into my iPhone on the go and enjoy the sound profile I prefer. Naturally, being a gamer, I did try the USB DAC on the PS5. It did not work, unfortunately. That would have been absolutely killer, because if you think about a $30 cable with custom DSP with a 2-pin connection, you can use this for a lot of IEMs on PlayStation 5. It did not work, sadly, but luckily you still have this cable, the 3.5, that does work on PS5, and it still sounds excellent. Just plug it into your controller and you're good to go. If you're really hell-bent on adding custom DSP and you want to use something like the Dusk, you can buy Quiddelix 5K, and that has the ability to be configured for PS5 and still give you full parametric EQ for full customization. So that's, like another $110, and it lets you use any IEM. But, would have been cool considering the price point. It is what it is. So I want to talk about bass response. And first, we're going to talk about the horizontally opposed double dynamic driver, or HDDS for short. It is two dynamic drivers that are basically pointed outward from each other. The short version of why they did this, at least what I think they did, is it has very linear extension and just a stupid amount of SPL before you get into distortion. If you're a bass head, you like to crank the bass and turn it up loud, whether you're hard of hearing or just uber amount of bass, this is your IEM. It just absolutely punches and slams while also having insane sub bass extension. It's really one of the first IEMs I've ever used personally at my home, that when you have the right track and your sound profile isn't ridiculous, I don't use Bass Plus. I think that was too much. I actually really do like Crin's stock sound signature the most. But when you turn it up and you hear the bass impact that it does, it sounds more like a home theater system subwoofer type bass. Something that's dialed in well, not some slappy, cheap subwoofer, no offense. But when you have like a properly set up room that has the bass that you can almost feel the impact of, that sense of slam and punch, sounds really tight thanks to, a floor standing speaker, but then you have that 20 hertz Hans Zimmer bass depth. These do that, and it's just so intoxicating. It really surprises you that it's coming from an IEM. One example that I like to use to test this is a song from James Blake. It's called Big Hammer, Part 2 specifically, and it's from the Endel Soundscapes soundtrack or album, I guess. It's just a ridiculous song that exposes poorly built bass drivers personally. If there's any sense of distortion or issues with the bass delivery, usually that song helps me pinpoint it. And as a result, that song has never sounded better on an IEM. I was so floored. I actually DM'd that track to Crin and some other people that I talked to on the audio forums. I'm like, yo, if you have the Dusk, play this song on it. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I think that says a lot about how good the bass management is on this. And I think it's pretty safe to say, after looking at the frequency response, the mid-range is excellent as well. It really is a fine line of balancing, bass emphasis, but not pulling mid so far back to make the bass emphasis seem stronger, where you start to lose some of the vocals, and then at the same time, you don't want to boost upper mid-range too much where you get to like that 1 to 2K area leading into the treble, that things can sound too harsh or forward either. And a lot of times that's done to kind of have the perception of detail, especially 2 to 4,000 hertz. So this isn't overly done there, yet it still presents it so well. Part of that is the use of the tribid system and built really well with the crossover matrix to not introduce any weird distortion or phase issues or anything like that. It sounds so resolving and clear that at the $400 price range, I'll be honest, this is kind of like an industry resetting performance at this price. And I know 400 isn't cheap, but this is really going toe to toe with some of the top of the line stuff out there. And this has sounded better than a few multi-$1,000 IEMs that I've heard, at least personally to my taste. One song I like to use to kind of test some of that, I listen to a huge variety of genres, but Depeche Mode has a song called Ghosts Again. It's a newer song. And David Gunn's voice is a little bit more shouty in the first place, and that particular song is mixed to just be very, I don't want to say sharp, but his voice has a lot of attack in that song. It can be kind of forward, and any kind of IEM or headphone that's too forward in that 2K region, which can sound good with other things, that song ends up sounding too shouty, and when you turn it up, you end up having to and you turn the volume back down. And these are one of the few that presents all the detail I'm looking for with acoustics and string instruments without making his voice, David Gunn's voice, too forward in that song. So that's another way of kind of, I guess, showcasing how well they balance the vocal performance. I already alluded to the treble extension being quite bright. It's not too bad. It's just a little bit more airy and sparkly than what I personally prefer. And thankfully, people, when they see planar drivers, a lot of people have indifferences or differences towards them because planars have their own unique timbre characteristics. And because the micro tweeter is relegated to 10,000 hertz and up, you're getting all the speed benefits of a planar, but it's not really impacting the timbre characteristics of everything else. And that's part of why that mid-range sounds so nice. Now, I know I have a lot of gamers out there that watch the channel, and you're probably assuming that these are going to be good for gaming, and I'm sad to say you are wrong. They are excellent for gaming. So I mentioned the whole bass response earlier, and there's, everyone uses IEM and the term gaming for different personal needs, whether it's single story games and you want something highly immersive or just plain very comfortable. And then you have the people that are chasing the ultimate competitive edge for FPS gaming. These are one of those IEMs where, because the bass is so impactful, but also with essentially zero distortion at any comfortable listening volume, you can benefit from the immersive games and get all of that detailed soundscape thanks to the extended treble up top. So the worlds sound very open and airy. You don't feel like you're wearing IEMs as much as many other IEMs do. while at the same time being as detailed as it is. They are of course going to be excellent for FPS shooters. This approaches a point where honestly, if you're chasing a $400 IEM purely for a competitive edge, you're at the point where the skill gap and how you play is a much more limiting factor than what an IEM is going to give you. This is certainly not going to hold you back or make it harder for you to play at any competitive level, and I think these do an exceptional job in gaming regardless of what type you play. The driver matching is excellent. Detail retrieval and technicalities is great. It doesn't sound dampened or stunted. So you're really getting every single detail. And the killer thing is that a lot of people don't always consider is you can crank treble and all these things to increase detail, perceived detail. But as soon as a sharp note hits, like, you know, firing a gun or ejecting a round, that metallic ringing sound is fatiguing and it hurts and it creates listening fatigue, and after a while you turn it down, and the byproduct of turning the volume down is you hear a lot less subtle details. So this is an IEM where you can keep it at a moderate to higher volume comfortably because there's nothing that's piercing or sibilant or painful to cause fatigue. Now, if you made it to the end of this video and you still haven't purchased this yet and you've been on the fence, frankly, what are you waiting for, right? It really is an industry resetting IEM, and I don't say that lightly. I've reviewed a lot of audio products, and this is the first IEM where I feel like, you know, I could legitimately just have one IEM for all of my use cases because it handled the comfort. I've had IEMs that I absolutely love the sound, but I can't wear them as long, and I'm really pleased that the nozzle is as small as it is. If I had to nitpick some things, I really hope Moondrop improves the app experience. Right now, that's pretty poor, and that's holding back the DAC cable to an extent. It's a little bit more cumbersome. This cable, while a nice cable, it looks good, it feels a little bit cheaper for a premium product. I think or hope the cable would have been a little bit nicer, but you know, for the sound performance I'm getting at this price point, I'll just buy a new cable. And to me, that's still an excellent value. I actually like the case. I think the color scheme on it is quite nice, and you know, it's kind of gender neutral. It doesn't like look too masculine or feminine or anything. It looks pretty classy. The Velcro wraps that the cable came with stuck to my liner here, and it kind of shredded that cover a little bit. That was literally the first time I unboxed it. So you know, maybe that'll change down the road, but those are really the only nitpicks I have. From a sound quality perspective, with just the mildest EQ, I really can't foresee or recall any listening experience that's touched this under $500. And from a personal preference, I think this absolutely beats IEMs that are 2 or 3 times its price with ease. So the Dusk is a great product. As more IEMs come out that I think compare to it, I'll have more comparison videos down the road because I will be keeping these, but I will have links in the description below, so it'll take you to several sites that carry this. I have no affiliate or kickbacks or anything like that worked out with Crin or Moondrop or any of these resellers. I avoid those. The generic Amazon link does do generic affiliate stuff, but nothing arranged with them. Purchase it wherever you like. I hope you found the review helpful, and I can't wait to see the next one, so don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Take care, and I'll see you next time.